All right. So Adaga is a Portuguese band, and Nas Ruínas do Ser is their first album, as far as I know. I know that it's at least one person. I don't know that I would call it black metal, but that's probably where most people would become interested in it. And there's a lot of it's a hard thing to start talking about because it is essentially what I would consider electric folk music, but not, not necessarily the American or even pan European sense of sort of paganistic rebirth. It's more a modern sense of indie rock influenced, post black metal ish. You see, there's no way to approach this album and make sense because well, the one thing that I could do is just describe exactly what happens when you listen to it in terms of what you will practically hear. That is a vocalist who sort of croaks or rasps out his sort of guttural inflections in a sort of deadpan, um, depraved emotional context. Um, there is a clean guitar channel that uh, plays arpeggiated rhythms in simple chord progressions. There's a second guitar that provides coloration to those rhythms in the form of what I would consider lead guitar, if you will. And then there's electric guitar accompaniment that shows up for cinematic value. And when I say cinematic, this is not a polished record. This is a raw, uh, clandestine recording that has nothing to do with post music beyond sort of what I would consider an indie rock singer songwriter affect to it in a lo-fi sort of sense. So what am I talking about? Is it car seat headrest but for black metal fans? No, but it's there is a drummer here, and he does play what I would consider black metal adjacent techniques to sort of guide along these sort of swaying rhythms of it all. So that's as far as we kind of get for what this is. I mean, it's about 30 something minutes. It's a set of songs that are all fairly similar. A lot of them are very simple. And those arpeggiated progressions that I was talking about on the clean guitar channel are really the rhythms. It provides the rhythm here. There aren't really riffs. There aren't really. There's. It's not a rock guitar. This is not a rock guitar album. It's not a black metal album as far as I'm concerned. But it is evocative of a state of disconnection, a sort of unrest. And what you can glean from the Portuguese here is that it's sort of ruminating on death and the moment of death and suffering and um, where my mind goes is something like Ural, and sort of I would say Opeth influenced a lot of really bad bands back in the early 2000s. So that's kind of like the vibe that I get from this is that it's not quite forest folk from a metal fellow, but it's uh, sort of uh, it's something different at least. It's sort of black metal unplugged, but a modern form of it that really is influenced by um, post rock, post something that I don't connect with anything other than the fact that it is kind of a folkish revelation of the self. It is a very dark record, and one that kind of drones on in an interesting way. So, um, there's probably something I'm missing in terms of like a modern rock interpretation. Maybe this is just a type of uh, anti melody that we hear a lot in modern black metal that I'm not that interested in. but the repeated sort of broken plucking of arpeggios on this record, uh, it's it's very frustrating to sit through to start, but then I think once you sort of start to think about what it means, what it is, and that it's a little bit of a bold statement to sort of put on a black metal record or label, and um, the whole thing is pretty interesting. So I couldn't give it a really high score because I just don't. There's my scores are based on recommendations, and how can I recommend this to anyone when it's just um, other than the virtue of just a challenge of something new or something different, probably something you haven't heard before. And that comes with the caveat that it's not performed quite well. The production is kind of interesting, though. It does have sort of an atmospheric black metal touch to it, where the the clean guitars are very much up front. The drums are 30 feet in the back, so it's very much an album of distance and disconnection and morbidity. That's just sort of interesting to me. Um, can I recommend it? Well, yeah, but I don't think you'll listen to me again if you agree to go listen to it. You know what I mean? It's like not. It's not something I want to recommend to people so heartily that they'll, with hopes that they'll ever listen to another suggestion I ever have, because it's sort of a kind of a brutal um, disappointment for someone to show you a black metal record and have it be a clean guitar sort of strum fest. So um, take that as you will. I don't really know how to recommend this record, but I do think it's interesting and I think it's worth listening to. It will definitely be one of those things that just kind of happened and some people noticed and some didn't. Maybe there's a niche there, I don't know. I'd really like to know if there's more music like this in this style that is maybe taking this much of a risk with just the level of polish and maybe the lyrics are quite interesting. I'd like to know more about it, but as is, it's just sort of an interesting thing that sort of happened. So take it as you will. Or you can read a little bit more about it in the review. You can check it out on Bandcamp and listen to it for yourself as well. So make your own decisions.